vulnerable little warnings from our nervous system, right? To remind us at times that maybe being in our full expression didn't go well. Maybe we didn't get the promotion. We got told to shush, even all the way down to our childhood, right? So another one is it's not safe.
Hello and welcome to this latest episode of Courageous Leaders, Connected Teams. I'm your host, Stephanie Freeth, and I am absolutely thrilled to be joined today by Isaac and Thorald Koren. They're the Brothers Koren. And for those of you who've been seeing my stuff, these are the guys that I got to create music with, and I still am singing with as part of a singer's journey. So Isaac and Thorald, welcome. It's so great to have you here today.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. So good to finally be in this conversation with you, and hi to everybody listening.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie.
So there's a lot we want to cover today. Isaac and Thorald are just amazing human beings, and the way they approach music and resonance and sound and healing and just all of these things are so applicable to the work that I do with leaders every day. So I'd love for you to start off telling us, how did you get into this work? You had this whole band career, rock star career, and now you literally take normal people through finding their voice and creating songs. And maybe you could just give us the shortish-ish version of your path up to now.
I love it. Well, we'll try to condense it. We of course, both artists, musicians, found our voices separately, but we are brothers. And it wasn't until we were teenagers that we discovered that we can sing together. Of course, we just had a harmony between us. So we set out on this small vision to become the next biggest band in the world after following our mother from Australia to New York City. And we found ourselves as teenagers in New York, looking out, thinking, surely success is a week away. So we were beautifully naive. But over the course of about 15 years, we carved out a pretty ambitious dream to go from Beach Boys from Sydney to taking a stab at the American music market. And we got quite deep into the dream that we had set out to be. We joked that a lot of what we envisioned came true just slightly differently than we thought, but we did experience quite a bit of success. If we're being harsh, we'd say we wanted to be the next Coldplay, but we ended up touring, opening for Coldplay would be one way to put it. But we did experience some incredible moments over 15 years. We learned so much about what it means to follow a dream, to embody a vision, and to be, sing in front of well over 1 million people, arenas to little ghosty dive bars, everything in between, tour buses, Conan. Lived out a lot. We got to tour the world with Pink for a couple of years and many other notable acts.
We also learned how important it is sometimes to fail. Part of our journey was to coincide with realizing that daring to suck is ultimately the way towards the creative process. We're born with this ability to fail, to fall and not take it personally as we're learning to walk, for example, or talk, So that's what we kind of took away with
from those years.
Those years.
It was on a gut feeling. We moved out to LA, and the gut feeling was let's foster and nurture and help develop other voices. We thought it was in the music industry because that's what we were doing, and we came out to LA and started this writing experience with people, and we got quite far into it and realized the same day it just wasn't it. We were like, are you enjoying this? It was very calculated, very boxy, very performative. A bunch of great people trying to write hits is kind of an accidentally unsatisfying experience at times, and it was certainly for us. And so we had this idea that came to us the next day. What if we just didn't play any game, put together our own game that we wish someone had invited us into, which was, what if we became someone's brothers and created a multi-month coaching experience where they got to know themselves? And what if we helped them see themselves, unpack the ingredients that were them? What if we made music from that perspective, like real old school artist and human development, And so we put this idea down on paper, and as the universe often works, someone requested us a couple of weeks later, and that takes us back 10 years ago. We did our first ever what we call the Songwriter's Journey. And now in 2025, we have journeyed with quite a few hundred people privately in small group containers to well over 1,500 songs so far in 10 years. Of course, we've developed courses and programs, and we facilitate workshop. And of course, Stephanie, you were an alumni of the Songwriter's Journey and been to some of the workshops we facilitate. And our mission has sort of become not just holding a space for us to be artists, but a mission to hear the world's song, and especially through the lens of people that maybe have ruled themselves out of playing with this medium called music, song, and voice. And our ancestors knew how powerful it was, how healing. But also there's a lot of people walking around either scared to sing, but also wishing they could reclaim the rock star in themselves, and that it would show up and liberate all areas, including their business life.
And that's where we connected. So I found myself following your colleague, Eileen McCusick, who does biofield tuning, and you guys were doing Sing the Body Electric at Kripalu. And I came to the workshop and we were toning and singing, and I felt so amazing after that weekend. I'm like, wow, there's something to this, because I had been a singer in high school, but I was also a dancer, and there were choirs that I hadn't made along the way, like the madrigal singers, and I had deemed myself not good enough to sing. I had disidentified as a singer, and I noticed that it was hurting me I was afraid to put myself out there. I had this deep fear of singing, of reclaiming my voice, of putting myself out in video. And so after the workshop, when you said, hey, we do these private songwriters journeys with people, and we had a call, there was something in my soul that was like, I have to do this. And with these two amazing humans who create this container, who are encouraging me to dare to suck, and who are going to help me get my voice back. And that was the start of the journey, and it just kept getting better from there.
Oh, that's amazing. And what an incredible experience we got to have together. And you were still such a shining example of what it means to lean in and just immerse yourself in something new, even though you don't know necessarily what you were doing, but what you unleashed was this just incredible, expressive and creative instrument in yourself. And it was just such a wild, beautiful joy to be part of it.
Well, thank you. Let's actually talk about small voices and then the creative process. So you have seen in working with so many people that we've got these small voices that tell us we're not good enough. What are the common small voices that come up as people start to reclaim their voice and wanting, to bring that into the world?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this work around the small voices was awakened because we wrote a song with Catherine Woodward Thomas's group. And she was doing this shadow work. And we, in that moment, sitting in the audience, hearing her talk about the small voices that come up around, life. She's a life coach. And about love, too, calling in love. That often brings up a lot of small voices. Mm-hmm. We were like, dude, the voice is full of small voices. That's exactly what we're doing with you, right? So we gave it the term small voices. And we started to kind of look in our private sessions, what is happening here? Why is this person resisting? Why is this person shutting down? Why is this person, rebelling, in some way reacting? And who is it in them? It doesn't seem like it's them. It's this kind of survival system. So we call it the small voices. And the five main small voices that seem to come up, in all of our journeys. And some people experience one, some people experience a combination or all of them, the whole choir, first is I'm not good enough, or I'm not anything enough, that my voice isn't high enough or young enough, pretty enough. And that usually comes from comparative conversations about their voice, which has been normalized, let's be honest.
Yeah, comparing,
She sings like Adele, in music business, there was always that in the background, this comparative conversation.
Yeah, so enoughness, we find, is often what stops a lot of people from starting, And again, just a quick definition on small voice. It means any negative or unsupportive thought, feeling, sensation, or emotion that arises in your mind or body as you go to express yourself. So this could be as public speaker, and this could be as creative, and this could be very much as a singer. These vulnerable little warnings from our nervous system, right? That to remind us at times that maybe being in our full expression didn't go well. Maybe we didn't get the promotion. We got told to shush, even all the way down to our childhood, right? So another one is it's not safe. I'm unsafe. Maybe I'm unsafe to share my voice in this moment, even, right? And we all know how intense the last few years of raising your voice in the workplace has been, right? And looking at such a wild time in the world. So another one is I'm not worthy, or
voice doesn't have a value. Perhaps again comparative, but it's about that value of your voice, the inherent value of what you have to say, also the pressure of needing to have something valuable to say.
Right. Another one is I'm too much, or don't be too much. We found that we thought this was a classic kind of Aussie cultural voice of, tall poppy syndrome, if you know about Australian culture. However, we've discovered, actually being in America, that this is very prevalent. And what we recognize is a lot of us went through a time in our lives where maybe we were sharing something triumphantly, and we made our mother, our father, our brother, our sister jealous, or maybe it created less than a favorable reaction in our early community life, friends, school, family. And so a lot of people have a small voice that asks them to dim down, not to stick out, even though there's a desire actually to flourish and actually roar out. There's that small voice that comes and bites.
Yeah. And finally, the perfectionist small voice, which again has been normalized. And, if it's got to be perfect or I won't try. And around the voice in particular, that can be a real unfortunate inhibitor, because the voice is one of those beautiful, complex, and unique voice recognition software, for example, proves that your voice is recognizable. It's unmistakably you. And even with AI software and all of that, we still are recognizable with our own resonance, our vocal signature.
We often find in these top 5 small voices that, the first one, something like not enough, gets you not to start, but then we can also have the voice, it's got to be perfect. So once you start, you got to perfect it. So these voices don't necessarily make sense because they're not from now, but we all have them. In fact, most people we recognize that we get to work with, thousands of people we've got to work with around the world, most of us have a choir of voices, right? And those voices aren't singing in harmony either. And so what we've discovered is that it's up to us to be able to befriend and form a new relationship to these voices. They don't get cut out. They don't get fixed even. They get incorporated, right? And they can actually have a space again in your voice. And so a lot of our work is centered around helping people reframe those parts of themselves.
Let's be clear, this is not just about singing. 75% of the population, particularly in America, have some form of glossophobia, fear of public speaking. And when we free up the part of us that is willing to sing, we free up the part of us who's willing to speak, to lead confidently, courageously, to be vocal, and to share the vocation. Yeah.
Absolutely. And even yesterday in the Singer's Journey that I'm participating in right now, you invited us to sing from those small voices, to sound out what may not have been said in the past. And as I was doing that, I had a small voice coming up of like, you're not safe. And when I let those words just kind of come out of me, it was really freeing to let that come through.
Yeah,
thanks for sharing.
It was a beautiful melody you just sung too. I feel like you bring up such a big point, because so often we've been taught, conscious or unconsciously, to kind of bypass the negative feeling that's being felt in our bodies and try to get to reassurance, like, no, I'm safe, no, I'm safe, I'm safe. But sometimes that small voice just needs to be heard out. And that part of us just didn't feel safe at that time. So by giving it voice now, by including it, by it being okay to feel unsafe for long enough, that part can then kind of come back and reintegrate. So it's actually very counterintuitive looking at the nervous system from that approach. So yeah, it's a beautiful new way of looking at reframing our behavior and our relationship to self. And there's no safer medium that we've discovered. Of course, we're biased, but what we've been studying over 2 decades is how safe and how natural voice, music, song is to our biology, right? It's just that in the last handful of generations, right, of capitalism, of modern society, that we've lost our obvious connection, almost like a food group like quality of music, song, and voice. That you don't have to go back many generations to have your direct bloodline actually gathered around and sung and all sang for their vitality, for their wellness.
Once a week.
Yeah.
There's some other statistics I just want to read out, because I know that you have so many leaders listening to your podcast, but 75% of workplace harassment victims experienced retaliation when they spoke up.
Wow. That's a huge number.
Yeah. And that's a lot of inverse pressure on the voice to be silent. Yeah. 61% of employees believe that their career options are limited by their fear of public speaking. 61%.
That's big, yeah.
That's an inhibition to upward mobility. And then only 1 in 4 of us feel that we're living up to our expressive and creative potential.
Wow. Those are powerful stats. It's so true. And so we've got these pressures that happen as we're socialized growing up. We've got things that happen in the workplace. And I will say one of the things that I really appreciated about the way you worked with me was how you defined the creative process and how you took judgment out of that kind of till the end. So would you mind describing, because I think this is really applicable to so many different industries, how you define the creative process?
We'll happily go through the creative process design as we brought you through. But I think the key distinction here is the difference between judgment and choice, because the creative process is full of choice, of choosing. And I don't think that there's ever a moment that you need to have judgment per se. And so there's the distinction that we'll kind of make.
That's such a purist take.
The creative being can be curative, right? The choices at the end, which is what everyone loves to talk about, right? How do we make sure quality control, right, in the business world? How do we make sure that what's leaving this building or leaving this studio, there's the vocal booth in the back, is it?
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good distinction, though, because what we're discovering is through the model of the creative process, which we began to codify for us back in about 2016, 17, when we recognized that we were working with almost 100 people that had never written song to many songs. And we're like, well, what's working? We have to look. And we were afraid to look, to be honest, Stephanie, because it was working. We were creating this new business. Clients, well, if we look, is that okay? Like kind of magical thinking. But when we sort of looked at what was occurring, we recognized this 5-mode flow that we now teach companies. We go into companies and speak about. We were just at UCLA on brain health and the connections of creativity. And what we've been discovering is through these 5 modes that we'll talk about briefly, what we're really doing, which I guess would be maybe the most notable study in the creative flow since the 60s. It's called BVSR, Blind Variance and Selective Retention. It's probably most aligned with that, which is when we allow ourselves permission to make a mess and generate a multitude of ideas without judgment, we let the greatest variance through. And then later we select by retaining that selection that is worth retaining. So what's showing in the science, and has been for years in models, is that when we actually dare to suck and just do it, think about the billions of dollars spent on that Nike commercial, just do it, which is another way of saying our methodology, dare to suck. It doesn't mean suck. It means dare to let that next first creative, expressive impulse pass your lips without limiting and attaching to an exact result. So what you're risking is it's going to be crappy first. But what you're also risking, and this is in the science and in the modeling, that the greatest works will come through too. And so time and time again, what BVSR shows is that the most prolific creators were those that created the most, and from the most came the gold.
So we'll just run through, and I want to prove that this new, leaving Nike behind with the new phrase, just choose, right?
Just
the first stage we call downloader, and the just choose of downloader is yes and yes and yes. Just choose yes. right?
Mm.
Endless yes. Don't stop.
That's the first mode of the creative process, flow or design as we teach it.
Yeah. So as soon as that's done, and that, for example, in songwriting, that means pressing record on your phone or wherever, singing, making sound,
and letting anything come out.
choosing.
Okay, I'm going to
a
choose.
note.
I'm going to choose a chord.
And then I'll choose to follow that chord. Only will you be. And then I'm going to pass it on and say yes to Stephanie. Yeah, and then we'll say yes to Thorald. There you go. Yes to you. If you're listening there. Yeah, so that's a yes factory here. Downloading, it's choosing to say yes. And there is the full judgment suspended here. Right? The choice is to not judge, if you wish.
So the second mode is really about curiosity, and we call it sculpting. It really means choosing a moment from the moments and going, ooh, what if we, and really it's the spirit of yes and. Of course, it's an improv technique, but it really is about yes-anding. It's still suspending judgment entirely and only concerning yourself in the present moment with an idea worth sculpting.
In one way, though, it is all judgment in that you're making a choice to find one idea that you can set all of your intention and attention on, which, just briefly, kills every other idea in that moment for a second.
Just for a second.
And so it's a brutal sport in a way of going and becoming zero focus.
Right.
And engineers have to do this when they kind of do this process and then they zero in on the one thing that they're going to replicate and scale.
Right. So sculpting also, for a simple, in a practical sense, is repeating what you liked and adding to what you liked, right? And often when you add, it's incremental. It's not drastic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a good model is just a note.
So what are you going to choose?
Like, for instance, Stephanie went, something like that. I'm just going to say it was that. I'm going to choose, I'm going to repeat it first.
Yep.
I'm already
The element of sculpting, which we love, is that it also allows for the continuation of play and creativity and invention.
And I actually did, because I changed the melody slightly already. So I started to flourish. Imagine a potter on their pottery wheel. The clay starts to move slightly from its original play.
Well, and even when, so I had gotten a download for Creative Revolution, the first song that we recorded, and I was out walking my dog and I got this, the creative revolution is underway. And I sent that to you as a voice memo, because that's what you say. Hey, record it, put a title on it, and then we shared files on Dropbox. And literally like the next day, you guys had created you sculpted this whole melody without lyrics that blew me away, that then I could write lyrics into. So that co-creation process.
Well, and you're also,
That's a great download.
it was, and of course it's one of your songs, but what you're also touching on is what we did is we sculpted and then went into framing. So that's our third mode of the creative process flow, which is once you've yes-anded, you can then start to map out the beginning architecture of the idea that's flowing through you. So if it's a song, well, it's the model of a frame. It might start to say, the creative revolution is on the way. Sounds like a great start to a verse. Maybe it's the theme, blah, blah, blah. So you start to question, what is it? Where does it go? What do we need? What's the structures starting to appear?
Yeah.
And
It's kind of like the first time where you were making choices, right? Multiple choices get made in framing, right? Like how long might it be? Who might I be singing this to? If it's a song, for example, if it's a new company, who am I serving? Right? Like getting really clear on the why is a really fun part of framing generally. Orienting, context,
And so giving some legs, giving some bones or beginning anatomy to an idea. even an agenda, even what are the next action? What does it
Space.
feel like? So that's what we did. And we sent it back, and suddenly you had a space to make. So that brings us into this fourth mode of the creative process flow, which is maker.
And if we were cooking a meal, I like my favorite analogy to kind of grok maker is downloading would be, going to the market and like cruising around and choosing it. Sculpting might be coming back and flipping through, getting the ingredients, looking at recipes, playing around with ideas. Framing would be chopping all of the ingredients and getting it ready. But then making happens as soon as you turn on the heat. So the time component of this creative act.
Yeah, you've got an hour.
There's pressure, which is necessary, right? And that's why a lot of people who leave, we shame ourselves for procrastinating, but what we're actually doing is kind of recreating this natural tendency for us to wait until there's pressure to go into thinking.
Natural compression, if you will. And sometimes we just need a good request. So obviously we sent back this beginning little piano thing with the melody back at you, and it was like, all right. And you were like, amazing, I see the skeleton. I know I have a series of days till we next see each other. I'm going to write into this thing, right? So between time and container, making can become possible. A lot of people jump into making too quick. They haven't allowed the download, the sculpt, and the frame to exist prior to making and allowing the magic to fill that space. So for someone who makes too quick, this is a really great opportunity to see the front end. For someone who doesn't make it all, it's a great opportunity to put yourself under some pressure in little short, powerful.
Yeah, set a deadline to get to rough draft. We find that does wonders. If we convince and have a conversation with the critic and say, hey, you cool if we get to rough draft? Then we'll come see you, right? Like, can't wait to share the rough draft with you. Just let me make a mess till then, right?
Yeah.
And so this pressure zone can also be without the critic. Imagine that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like going on holiday without your kids. No, just joking. Being left alone in the creative cave, right? Without the naggy critic voice, but just with the pressure cooker of the fire in the cave.
But
right?
just first draft.
Fire.
Let's not underestimate this. We live under the presentation perfection readiness of the world right now, right? You put something out on social media, you present to your company, you present to your team. We often feel like everything always has to be like, not just first draft, but like, seventh iteration, as if everything in life is always, we have to be available and ready at all times. It's an overcooked way of living. What isn't is giving yourself permission to get to the next first draft completions and then let the natural iterations take place after.
And a lot of people are using AI from like downloading and sculpting. We recommend like maybe consider, if at the earliest, bringing it in here and making. See if you can frame it without being framed, and then find your support where you need it. But can you reach in to where you alone can find, the resonance of an idea or the need for a new company or a blog or whatever's calling you creatively next? It could just be sexy, color coordinated spreadsheets.
It's all creative,
right?
And I gotta say, when I got especially with Creative Revolution, that song, after you played the whole thing, the lyrics wrote themselves within a few hours. It just flowed. So also paying attention to kind of my body, and I felt like it was like a vessel. I felt it just kind of dropped in and came through, and it wasn't effortful. It was just easy, and it's still one of my favorite songs that we co-created. But I was amazed with this process unfolding, how easeful it felt, how joyous it felt, and in Daring to Suck, that the actual product ended up, to me, and again, I'm biased, but it's pretty great.
That alone, right?
Yeah,
the satisfaction of feeling creatively expressed that only a quarter of the population seem to have that and access to, right? So it's a real privilege and rare privilege to kind of experience that. And, you know, that's why we set up our foundation, because like, this is a human right to feel this satisfaction, to feel at home and more than enough and safe to sound out and to take a deep breath in and not feel like we have to be perfect or comparative in our voice, because it's literally impossible in a way.
You're talking about satisfaction.
Yeah.
To be satisfied, what a real litmus of life. And even 20 seconds on the final fifth mode of the creative process flow, so we don't leave out curation. We believe that if you have allowed yourself to make a mess and let time and nature slowly distill it to the final moment, the fifth mode is about being curative. And to us, curation is not judgment. Curation is selection with positive eyes that says, is this it? And if it's not, where isn't it? And only working on the not it's pieces until those pieces are also it. Because when everything is it's just, it is it. And then it's not about what's good, better, or bad. It's not even about feedback. It's about, this is it. Now, how might I share it? And so it's a very different approach to sharing what's coming through you, when all we're really going for is the it and is that you see from a healthy, voice positive, creative, positive place, not from a place that needs feedback from the world necessarily.
Yeah, so it becomes choosing it or choosing not it.
Yeah, and I got to experience that when I recorded in that studio right behind you, and then getting to listen back to that and then go kind of note by note. And so it wasn't like we didn't get to that part. We did, but it still felt so supportive. It didn't feel like you didn't hit that note, or like, and one thing I've struggled with, so I kind of have this high school experience, this break between my head and chest voice. I was a soprano, but I also can sing in my chest voice. And I was kind of berating myself as I was listening back. And I said, my voice is breaking there. And Isaac, you said to me, Stephanie, you've got to learn to love your break. And it was such a moment and such a gift. And I ended up kind of titling the album, Learning to Love the Break. That compassion towards these parts of ourselves that we can deem as not quite good enough is actually what makes it unique and authentic. That was a huge gift to me in that process.
Powerful, and Thorald likes to say this often. It's big. If you think about our favorite singers of the world's favorite singers, right? I'm thinking for some reason Nina Simone. She never considered herself a singer. Or Bob Dylan is one of them.
Yeah.
Right? It's not for their perfection that we love them.
No.
Yeah, some singers, obviously, it's their technical greatness that we admire, but not most. Not most of the singers that we love, right? I was thinking Jeff Buckley, who is a classically trained singer, but I loved when he pushed it and went out.
Yeah.
Right? Because he was such a master, he would know how to go out and be sharp. Or, he often went sharp, but some go flat to share, like, hey, this is sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is woeful, and I'm going to bring you down below the note, and it's going to be okay down there too. So anyway, that's very vocal centric, but you've got to learn to love your imperfections just as much as when you love that perfect little breathy tone that you get. Can you love it equally? And know when it's not it too, right? And know when to kind of lean into this curator and go, we won't choose that one. And then, like you said, can you choose not to berate? Can you choose not to go into narrative around why or how or what happened? Because it kind of keeps you
just choosing without story, right? Choosing without story, coming all the way through. That's freedom, right? I mean, creative freedom is the ability to lean in, move forward without attachment to the exact result, trusting your creative gut of what is and what isn't, pick with your nah, and then say, I'm complete. Like, that's creative freedom. That's creative freedom. We've worked with a few people from the business world many people, but I remember this one particular woman who leaned in, and she was like, and she'd been from a background where she had been raised by parents that were like, everything's about return on investment, right? And she leaned in and she was like, I can't believe I'm asking this, but what do you feel the ROI is here for me to do this songwriter's journey?
Great question.
And I was like, wow, what a question. Of course, by stage 4 of 10, she brought it back up, and she was just like, I don't even know how to define return on investment already, because she had such a cathartic opening to her whole body, her expression, her relationship to creativity as not a commodity, but as something that would bring lifeblood to everything she was doing in her life. And she's had quite a transformation since.
Can we unpack that for a minute? I know I wanted to get to singing, but I think what's coming through the voice to us unexpectedly is this, because of the unique nature of the voice, perhaps, or because the voice expresses something about us as the core, if you want, the soul. If you believe that we have a soul, the voice feels like the naked, access. And that's why perhaps we're so afraid of being heard, is because it's hard to hide in our voice. We're naked. Chloe Goodchild, the forerunner of this work that we've found ourselves doing in the UK, she calls her work the naked voice. And it is. And so, yes, we're in the full Monty up on stage, we're terrified, right? So it's understandable, like the idea that it's a problem that you've got to figure out, rather than just to get more comfortable.
Maybe it's voice. Instead of a return on investment, it's a return to instrument, right? Return to self. It's also a ripple of impact to me when we actually come home to our voice and start to be in our life from an embodied place, really sounding out how it feels to be us, being honest, creating environments that we are supported in. The ripples of impact are, I think, immeasurable, actually. I think we have this finite period of time to be on earth in these bodies, and we happen to be an instrument, right? And so, practically speaking, what occurs when you're actually satisfied and at home in your instrument and sharing how it feels to be you, it's such an incredible impact we can have on each other when we do that.
Yeah, and we, in the music business, we chased, exogenous or outside us determined value. And I think through this work, we find more endogenous based value, like value that is intrinsic, that's perhaps, infinite.
And that leads me into, I always like to share a practice with our listeners, and what you offer to help people go inside is the warm in, not the warm out or the warm up. We're not projecting out, but maybe you could give us a taste of with an and like that ease, that the way that you bring people to start to connect inside with their voice. Do you think you could give us a little taste of that before we wrap up?
Absolutely.
Love to.
I'm just loving this idea of return on investment being a return to instrument. Of course, we are investing in ourselves. And just in this moment, if you dare join us, we just invite you to take a moment to close your eyes if you're not driving. If you are driving, we just invite you to rewire your eyeballs back away from a need to watch anything. Just allow your eyes to drink in the space around you. And just falling back behind your face, can you just take back space behind your face, softening your shoulders? Can you just lean back into your body and let your body be this container for you to be in? Sinking down into your bum cheeks on the seat if you're sitting, just feeling what it feels like to take a seat, resting back in your power. Inherent power, nothing to wield, but just to yield, just to feel that power. And just fill up your belly with your breath, dropping your lungs soft, but filling up your belly triumphantly. You can put a hand on your belly just to feel that natural power, and then connecting to your exhale with some kind of exhale that steams or like a snake, slowing down your breath, just allowing yourself to get in touch with your breath and just tuning into how you actually feel as you arrive as best you can without pressure back in your body. You might be noticing you're a bit tired or you're energized. Maybe you've been disassociated. Maybe you're feeling anxious. Whatever it is, maybe just meet yourself as you are. The most important thing, when you meet your body as it is, you meet your voice as it is. And just feeling how it feels to fill your body with air, and then let that natural rise of air rush up your windpipe, up into your face. And just notice that this whole body is a voice. And in this moment, we're just going to invite you to, just without thinking, just engage your vocal cords, close your mouth, and just connect to any hum in your mouth, just for yourself. It doesn't have to sound good. In fact, just follow the feeling, follow the vibration, follow the rumble. Find pleasing. Without judgment, just curiosity. Yes, at yourself. I felt good. Repeat it. Feeling curious like Stephanie, find a little melody. Like you're singing a lullaby back into your own body. What little string of notes do you need to feel today from your own voice? Just letting that hum build in your body. Can you feel like your whole body is like a cup that you're filling with your own voice? Warming in. Of course, you're stimulating your vagal nerve. You are reacquainting yourself with the natural chemical flow from your brain stem down through your nervous system. Singing is damn good for your health as well. Just letting yourself dare to suck. Let yourself hum. Right up to the creative gut. Open up into the sonic anatomy sound for the diaphragm. Yeah. Since we were talking about the creative gut, we go, yeah. Yeah. Singing the word yeah. Can you say yes to your voice in this moment? Turn the diaphragm around a little bit, just a little bit, and to the na, same space, but just kind of deflecting, setting a boundary. Use your hands. You're going to sing it maybe? Let's just open that valve back, that same area of your diaphragm, back to yeah, just to close. Yes. Just closing your lips now, back to a hum. In your voice. And we mean literally, is it sweet, is it salty? We also mean metaphorically. Feel the taste of a rumble upon your lips of your own into existence. If you can sing, if you can feel, you are being yourself. Just inviting one feeling you're currently having right upon your lips to be tasted as we close, letting that feeling coexist with you. Here we go.
Feels so good. It's that internal experience. I don't care who's looking at me. Like, just get to have that experience right inside. It's such a game changer.
And it's like that movie, Harry Met Sally, when she's having the orgasm in the play, right? Right? If we're having that, if we're having what we're having, right? If we're having what we can have, and we alone can have, if we're having it, then we can all have it through that person. So just in case anybody's worried about what other people might experience through you, it's the thing that you're having that we get to have while you're having it. And that's what we love about great artists, is that they were having it. They're not half-assed about it.
And that's the problem with performance culture. We like to pick on performance culture because it robs us of experiences that we're really thirsty for. And by performance culture, I think we practically mean when we focus on what we should be doing that might be well received, when we leave ourselves to try to make ourselves look good or sound good for the benefit of others or for good feedback, we are leaving the opportunity to actually be in the experience. And when we're not in our experience, but we're in a performance of ourselves, people can't necessarily experience ourselves. They're experiencing us performing. And for the most part, it actually is less, it goes unsatiated. It's less satisfying. And ultimately, we're less successful when we're performing only. We're more successful.
A courageous leader to us, might say, is that it's someone who's willing to be authentic, who's willing to dare to be authentic, and not, overlooking good, for example, or performing, getting it right. Like just trusting that their voice will be there as it is more than enough.
Amazing. We're going to have you back for part 2 because there's so much more I want to get to. But for today, tell people how they can find you, how they can connect with you. You've got so many amazing programs going on. Your foundation is doing great work. How can people connect with you?
Thank you. Well, the easiest way to connect with us is www.brotherskoren.com, brotherskoren.com. And we'd love to hear from you. I mean, we literally do this work for you. If there's a part of you that feels nervous, scared, but somewhat excited to explore getting to know yourself deeper and better through music, song, and voice, as a self-development tool for your life, and also to live out the dream of like finally taking the stage, recording music, getting to say yes to that artist in you, we work with people that are doing it truly to feel liberated across their whole life, to someone really actually finally living out a dream they put on the shelf since college or high school. So whatever it is, we generally work with people that feel both like a little nervous and excited at the same time to bring it into their lives. So please write to us. And there's many ways that we guide people in small containers and privately year long. So we'd be thrilled to hear from you.
Yeah, and if you want to check out our foundation, we are committed to raising every voice and hearing the world's song. Yes. And it's ybvfoundation.org, YBV, Your Big Voice.
And there we have the beautiful privilege of helping create programs and also full scholarships for people that are ready to experience deeper mental and emotional health through music, song, voice, but haven't the funds, haven't the access. So we're really committed to helping underserved voices have somatic and alternative ways to find their wellness. And so it's been really amazing to bring it into environments and communities that need it.
Isaac and Thorald, thank you so much. I am just ever grateful to you. And thank you for being here to share just a little bit of what you bring with our listeners. And I'll see you again next week in the singer's journey. But I'm so glad that we got to spread your word to some more people who might be ready to hear it. So thank you so much. And for our listeners, thank you so much for watching this episode. Until next time, stay courageous, stay connected.